Welcome to my Days of Our Lives official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Konstantin intimidates Thomas at Sloane's apartment. Jude slept while Marlena told John that everyone had been saved from the cabin. And the exposure to radiation? John asked. Marlena explained that Paulina had kept her distance, and she believed that the damage would be minimum. I can understand why Paulina was impelled to go out there and find her son. But if she caused anybody to be sick? Marlena said with a mime. John jounced and noted that Paulina would feel shamefaced. Guilt. It's really rough to live with, John said. Marlena agreed. But occasionally it can have a veritably positive effect. Occasionally it can turn effects in the right direction, Marlena said. John argued that he'd every right to feel guilt about Katharina and Clyde. It's such a damn struggle, John admitted. Jude started to cry, and John went to recoup Jude's bottle. Your grandpa John is similar a fine man. He really deserves some peace of mind, Marlena said. After Jude finished his bottle, he fell back asleep. I am really glad that Eric and Sloane agreed to let us babysit, John said. I love being with that little Joe. Plus, I suppose it's important that Eric and Sloane have some time together, just themselves, Marlena said. With a nod, John noted that Eric had sounded upset. Marlena told John that Eric had commended in her about fiscal trouble. John suggested that they help. With a shake of her head, Marlena combated that Eric would probably prefer that they spread the word about Eric's photography business rather. In the police station, Rafe asked Jada about the lead in Montana at a hutment. Jada verified that the tip had been incorrect identity. I believe that between Clyde and Goldman, one of them will mess up, Jada said. While Jada streamlined the substantiation log down the hallway, Everett walked by and asked Rafe about the manhunt. No. And indeed, if there were updates, I wouldn't be participating it with you, Rafe lumbered. Everett was taken suddenly. The police manager is denying press access to the editor-in-chief? Everett asked. I am denying you access. Until you do the right thing and subscribe the divorce papers and give Jada some peace of mind, you are not welcome then, Rafe said. Rafe agreed to talk to any other journalist from the paper. I get it, okay. But what happened between Jada and I, it's particular. So, what you are doing right now is an abuse of power, Everett combated. You want to talk to me about abuse after what you did to Jada? Rafe yelled. Rafe asked Everett what was wrong with him. With a mime, Everett said, I wish I knew. Rafe asked Everett to subscribe the papers so that Jada could move on with her life. So, you say you do not know what's wrong with you? I suppose it's time to figure it out. Now get the hell out of then, Rafe growled. Everett walked out. Jada returned from the substantiation room, and she gave Rafe a serious look. I am sorry if I surpassed, okay? It's that Joe. I just detest what he's doing to you. And when I see him, I go a little crazy, Rafe said. Jada told Rafe not to apologize. I was actually going to thank you for defending my honor, Jada said. Rafe explained that he'd told Everett that he wasn't drink at the station until Everett inked the divorce papers. Perhaps I ought to just chill out about the papers. I mean, perhaps Bobby will come around if we stop pushing him, Jada suggested. With a mime, Jada noted that she wasn't in a rush to marry. At least not yet, Jada said. With a smile, Rafe stressed that he'd believed that Jada had wanted to subscribe the papers to be relief of Bobby, not because she wanted to marry. I understand. It's surely unseasonable to be talking about marriage. And, here, I am not trying to rush you into anything, Rafe said. Rafe told Jada that he only wanted her to be happy. I know. And you make me happy, Rafe. I am veritably thankful for you, Jada said. Rafe agreed. With a chortle, Rafe said he'd one complaint. Rafe noted that they didn't spend enough time together. We worked together, and we virtually lived together, Jada refocused out. I detest to say it, but it's not enough. Because I love spending time with you, Rafe said. With a grin, Jada asked how she and Rafe could spend further time together. Rafe noted that he'd formerly asked Jada to move in with him, and she had rejected him. I'm not great with rejection, so I'm not going to ask you again, Rafe said. Well, I suppose that you should defy it out and ask again, Jada said. Jada explained that her 2 previous marriages had made her pessimistic about connections, and she had been unfit to trust men. Also, you came on. And you really proved me wrong, Jada said. Jada told Rafe that he was honest and kind and that she was lucky to have him. You, Rafe Hernandez, are my person. And I suppose you should ask me again, Jada said. With a smile, Rafe asked Jada to move in with him. Jada said yes. Chad and Thomas played a fantasy magic card game at a table in the cantina. It feels like you are hustling me, Chad said. No way. Thomas yelled. Thomas explained that the magic card that Chad had played was defeated by his water card. Stephanie walked by and looked at the cards on the table. Why is a wizard in play? Stephanie asked. You, too? Chad driveled. Chad asked Stephanie for help because he didn't know how to play the game. After a quick clinch with Thomas, Stephanie examined the cards in front of Chad. Stephanie played a card for Chad. Perfect. Thank you, Thomas said. Chad transferred Thomas to the bar to ask for eyefuls, and with a grin, Thomas told Chad not to cheat while Thomas was gone. I could not cheat if I tried, Chad said. Thomas ran off. Stephanie sat down at the table and picked up Konstantin's red card. Neat card, Stephanie said. Chad agreed, and he thanked Stephanie for her help. Stephanie explained that her sisters had played the game, and Everett had tutored her how to play, too. After a moment, Stephanie asked about Stefan's release. Other than reporting on it, I am doing my stylish to stay out of all the DiMera insanity. Further from my children than me. But I cannot stay to get back into the Horton house, Chad said. Chad explained that he wanted the children to identify as Hortons rather of DiMeras. Stephanie refocused at a card and noted that if Chad played it, Thomas would win. Good. He loves beating me, Chad said. Stephanie laughed. Chad and Stephanie talked about how important Thomas had grown. How is it going at the Kiriaki's house? Stephanie asked. Chad admitted he was thankful to Maggie for her liberality, but that the house was too crowded. I feel especially bad for Julie, Chad said. Chad told Stephanie about Julie's adventure at Smith Island. Thomas returned with 3 eyefuls. Stephanie and I were just talking about the rainfall, Chad said. Chad explained that because of the cold rainfall, he and Thomas had cancelled their plans to go to the playground and had played hide and seek at the manse rather. Thomas invited Stephanie to visit them at the manse for a playdate. Sure. I would love to come play with you, Stephanie said. Everett walked by and saw Stephanie agree to spend time with Thomas and Chad the coming day. Everett started to leave, but Chad called out to him.